The best AI podcast where we'll continue to grow. A world of innovation where dreams become reality. Come join the movement, let's take AI to the next level. We're breaking barriers, rewriting the code. Together we'll conquer, watch our ideas unfold. The future starts here, joining the revolution. Let's say our podcast, the ultimate solution.
And this is Best AI Podcast. So I just figured I'd bring the crew straight out to the table today. My friends and partners in crime. To my left is Leland, down below Ross McCamey, and over there in my kitty corner is Chris Troca. So welcome to the broadcast, guys. I appreciate you being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure. Yeah, really.
So,
Always a pleasure.
Lee, you mentioned you had an image you're going to need to throw me here soon for your
I'm looking-
morning wake-up call to AI. He's
I'm
gonna
looking for it
grab
as we speak.
So if you're out there on Facebook or YouTube or stage.bestlive.tv, go ahead and leave comments. We can pick those feeds up and bring them on display. But if you're anywhere else out on some other site watching us on a share or out on the Best Live TV page or anywhere else that I broadcast, you're not going to be able to see the messages that are put in those comments. So come on over to either the Facebook page or the YouTube channel so that we can see those. The stage does have a private setup, so if you want to get away from social media altogether, just head over there and you can hang out with us there. All right, Chris, I'm going to start with you today since you seem to get the least amount of airtime most of the time. We're always talking about, give me the name of the app, Suno, right?
Suno.ai, correct.
So tell me about the experience you had with one of the open source models you were playing with the other day and give us a rundown real quick.
Of course. Lee suggested I check out stability.ai, which was interesting to play with. Overall, I think it's a cool tool, but I think it has a long way to go until it meets the same level that Suno.ai is able to produce. To me, it almost seemed as Stability.ai reminded me of my high school band, where we really didn't have really good knowledge of music. We thought we were good. It just didn't really come together. What you do is it's a prompt generated system. It creates a 3-minute track. It is instrumental only. It does a pretty good job putting in some layers of different elements. Again, I tried a punk rock Christmas song just to compare apples to apples here. And it gave me some sleigh bells in the beginning. There was a little bit of punk rockness later on, but it just didn't really have the same elements that a typical song you would expect, specifically with Suno.ai. So I think Suno.ai is the clear winner here, although I'm excited to see what Stability.ai can bring to the table as it progresses in years to come.
That's kind of crazy, isn't it? So what it sounds like is this thing doesn't do any kind of vocals either, right? It's just music in general. And
That's correct.
If I remember, the definition you gave was something like a third grader playing in the first time band or something like that. What were we?
That's exactly it. Like, oh, you want to root for them? Like, oh, if you just stick with it, you can get a lot better. But unfortunately, the music knowledge and composition just isn't there completely. It does seem like it's pulling in older samples. It seems like it's not well rounded. It doesn't feel like it's really well produced or mastered, and that's what I think just brings credibility more to Suno.ai in comparison.
That's pretty wild. So Lee,
Yeah.
I got something
Yes.
from you over here, right?
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second. Or we can start with that, either one.
Well, it's not a big deal. I want to get
Okay.
Chris's final input though on this. Have you seen any other AI audio tools that you think would even compare to what we're playing with here, or haven't you really dug into that stuff yet?
No, I haven't dug into any other audio tools. Literally, I found Suno.ai is just the best. I haven't come across anything else. Want something that is comparable, I'd be happy to bring it to the table and let you know my thoughts. However, Suno.ai, I'm on the paid plan. I'm using it every month. I'm running out of credits. I may have to go to the next level. I'm using it for a faceless YouTube channel and commercial backing tracks for some of the YouTube content that I'm putting out there. Just a great tool. It puts together a complete song in almost 30 seconds, and it's incredible what the prompt generator can come up with, both musically, instrumental, and also with vocals.
Wow, I can imagine. And it's only going to
Yeah.
get better as it moves ahead, right, Lee?
Yeah.
You're pretty close to these guys, but What do you got for us, Lee, in the news front when it comes to AI nowadays?
It's funny. There's not much going on this week, but a slow week is like still really fast in the AI world. A couple of things. Stability AI again, as Chris mentioned, has got their new 2.0 audio. One of the interesting demos I saw was a guy that did, just enter. You can record some stuff and it will convert that into music as well. So he was just doing some beat bop stuff or doing some stuff with some spoons, and then he turned it into a guitar and that kind of and drums. That was kind of cool too. But again, it's open source and it's a new product. I remember when I first was introduced to Suno, I guess you call it 1.0, it was pretty bad. And I kept asking them, what's the deal here? And they said, well, and they need more money. Well, they didn't say they need more money. They said they need more processing power, which means they need more money. And now I think that's what's happened, because I think they cut a deal with Microsoft a while back. And so my guess is that now they've got that CPU time and the process, they can teach the thing a lot more, which seems to be the biggest expense on all this stuff. So anyway, Stability AI audio is kind of cool. It's new, again, the new version, but as Chris said, it's certainly not there yet. The next one is HeyGen, which has got their new moving video, which is pretty cool. You can feed it a video and it will then lip sync and change the voice. And that looked pretty good. The quality of that has gotten a lot better since the other version. So check that out as well. And also OpenAI, many of you guys probably, familiar with that. The Dolly 3 has now added a little bit of end painting. It's not great. It's pretty basic. End painting is the ability to make a change. So let's say you want to change somebody's hat on a picture. You just highlight it and type in, put a top hat on them. It'll change it to something else. So that's kind of something that's been missing that they needed to be able to do. A lot of other Midjourney and Leonardo have had that kind of capability for quite a while.
Cool. And when you say that, is that image that you sent me then something that was an example of
No. The
painting?
image I just sent you was about something else. If you want to pop that up there, I had a discussion on my group, on my photo mentor group, about OpenAI and what's going on with it, and I guess what was happening is the person that was asking me the questions was like, is using the generative fill and Photoshop photography. And of course, I went on to like this major 3-part series I went on about this whole thing. And this was an example. The one on the left there that's okay. One on the left is a picture that someone sent me to review. And I said, yeah, it looks really nice. I said, but what I would have done is I would have framed it a little bit to the right and lead the viewer to the person. So putting things in the center, it felt a little cropped to me, a little tight. And so that's the way I did that. That one on the right is generative fill. I took it in Photoshop, made the canvas bigger, highlight it, and it just created all that stuff in the back. And then I use those arrows to say, okay, here's the way I would have done this, and gave him some tips, adjusted the brightness on him so he was the brighter subject in the frame. But anyway, that's a good example where using generative fill, in my opinion, is not really cheating. You're still a photographer, but I use it all the time to add things, or mainly to remove things that aren't there. So if they'd have called it, remove fill or remove 2.0, nobody would have said anything about it, because it has the word AI in it. I guess they get all freaked out about it.
Yeah, it's interesting because looking at that image, and I'll just go back to that for a second. I see what it did. It replicated the benches, obviously, behind it, and the poles and the spans of tarpon that's laying up above. So it was kind of interesting to see it pulled that off in a pretty good fashion. It didn't.
Yeah, it did a great job on it, I felt. And that's the one. It usually gives you 3 choices you can pick. Okay. And that's the one I selected. And, so I use it for that kind of thing all the time. So here's an example where I was using it as a teaching tool. I was trying to help someone give an example of how they might frame the thing. The only one I had was a picture on the left. Mm-hmm. So I didn't have any ability to have a wide shot. I don't know if he shot it that way or cropped it, but I was able to expand it and give him some examples. Well, maybe what I could have also done is done it to the right and said, hey, or you could have framed it this way. I've had situations where I was working on some things and using like Dolly or Midjourney, and it puts some in, like those products are not very good for doing text, for example. So what I do is put a box around it in Photoshop and say remove text. It just remove it and fill it in with what the background should have been. So
Gotcha.
things like that are really nice.
Yeah, and it's not like photographers haven't done that and put transparent backgrounds behind images of people and dropped them on other backgrounds for years. I mean, this has been
Well,
going on.
and that's was my whole 3-part rant about, and that was really what brought this whole thing up. Was I was basically, the first thing I said was, look, and I use the example I've told on this show before, the Gutenberg press, 15th century, how that people hated that thing. They felt it was going to put people's jobs out of jobs. The church was concerned it was going to take their authority away, because now you could, Latin, or it could be translated to other languages, and the Bible could be produced in other methods, and that type of thing. And they were also concerned about accuracy, of course.
Yeah.
And then the second thing was, like I said, photographer. I remember when I first started doing wedding photography many, many, many years ago. If you brought a 35mm camera to shoot a wedding, that was considered a toy. No real professional photographer would use a 35mm. You shot everything on medium format. And so nowadays, nobody even, that's not the case, right? So it's the same thing here. And I've used this analogy many times before. It's December 17th, 1903. They're Kitty Hawk, right? The Wright brothers have just taken off. We don't know what's going to happen. No one would have predicted then we'd be on the moon in 1969, would they?
Sure.
So it's the same thing here. We're making a lot of assumptions about what's going to happen with AI and what it's going to do and what it's going to look like and what jobs it's going to take, etc. But nobody really knows.
Russ, not to leave you off the show here, it's 15 minutes in. You haven't said a word yet. So why don't we get you?
I'm soaking it in, man. Y'all are the ones with the image generation audio, which I do have to jump in and say, I played with Suno the other day and was doing a demo. And not only did it knock it out of the park on the first try with what I was trying to do, I spent an hour or so later just exploring Suno music and listening to AI generated music for like an hour. It's incredible. People are doing some amazing things with it. But as far as the open AI and with the painting in, is that what you said it is, Lee?
In painting.
Painting. That is not my area of expertise. I've been playing with the new update with Samsung, and Samsung now has where you can take everything and you can edit it and move it. And it actually wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be off the bat. You can see where the image moved from. I'll actually, while somebody else is doing a segment, I'll edit a picture and I'll send it to you guys so we can show it. But I was just playing with it, moved my dog off of the couch and moved her down, and you could see a blurred out image where she was before. Still amazing compared to anything we could do before, but it's still, I mean, it's still in its infancy. The biggest thing I have with AI is everybody still thinks it's this magic genie, and it's not going to replace jobs. Like you said, Lee, it takes someone who's an architect with it, somebody who's an engineer who can come in and say, this is what we need. You take the expertise that you have previously and you just figure out how to use a new tool, and that's all it is.
Well, as I was describing to you guys before the show started, and what it takes for me to produce that cartoon, and there's like multiple steps. That is not a push a button and it's done, is it?
Nope, not at all. I think you named off at least 7 to 10 steps that you do.
Yeah, and probably 5 different programs I'm using.
And multiple people.
Yeah.
So as far as replacing people, I know you mentioned at least 2 other people in that process.
Yeah.
Outside of yourself.
And I'm actually probably going to bring a third on to help with the animation, because that's not my area either.
Yep.
No. So, animation is not your area. Come on.
Well, I've been dabbling in 3D modeling for a little while here, and I said this before, that stuff is complicated, man. It makes Photoshop look like Paint. It's so, it's really difficult.
But are we really looking in 3D?
Well,
don't we have to be in a 4D universe in order to see in 3D? Because
wait a minute
in
now.
a 3D universe, we can only see in 2D.
My head.
Well, We'll avoid that subject for now. We'll talk about that next time. But I do want to cover some news that went through the news feed over at AI Best AI Podcast real quick, because one of those things that did happen over the last week was Stable Diffusion 3 was made available for some people to get out and take a look at. So GadgetMates announced just last week that Stable Diffusion 3 is now available for early preview. So obviously those people that are getting access to it up front are going to be the big players in the game. But that was just one of them. The other big announcement, I think, this week, from my perspective, really was the fact that we have a competitor now for Sora, which has just been announced by another competing company. And when I'd love to see, oh, it doesn't look like that article is going to come up. There it goes. So the guys over at Snap, now not to be confused with Snapchat. Snap is a corporation that deals in a lot of different stuff, but in here, in this case, it's Snap AI. So Snap AI chief launched Higgsfield, which is taking on OpenAI's Sora video generator. So this one's going to be made available to the public, and probably sooner than OpenAI's will even be as well. And the comparison to this has been pretty substantial. I haven't actually been able to do anything with this app yet and be able to play with it at all, but this will just give you a little rundown of how this.
Do they talk about how long you can produce a video for?
I don't believe so, but let's see if this has got some audio on it. Looks pretty wild. I don't know. The imagery I'm seeing looks pretty good.
That looks really good.
Yeah. So we'll have to go take a look at Higgsfield, and that's higgsfield.ai, Higgsfield. And
well, the generative video stuff is just fantastic. I'm really excited about that stuff because, you know, that's going to make all the difference in the world in stock photography and stock B-roll footage that you might need for something specific.
Absolutely. I did want to give a shout out to our good friend out there. We have, I believe it's Sue-Ann, is it? It's a friend of yours, I know, Lee, that you're familiar with.
Is she watching?
Yep. She wanted to wish us all a hey, 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 and let us know that she's out there paying attention. So thanks for coming by. I appreciate you being here. That's all I've got right off the top of my head, but I know there's a lot of stuff happening, Lee. I'm kind of playing around right now with an application that I thought was pretty cool. I'm sure a lot of you out there have seen online course builds. Okay. I came across an app that actually lets you build courses with AI, so that once you have the platform, you get in, you start to generate whatever course you want, and it helps you build the titles. It helps you build the content. It helps you do everything that it would take to actually build your course content and then ship it out. So I think that's one of probably the best places to use any kind of chat GPT oriented generative text AI, because now we can alter what comes in an interface that gives us the ability to take whatever ChatGPT developed from our outline and edit it right there on the spot inside a course developer, instead of having to do all that editing somewhere else, bring it into a course developer that doesn't have AI incorporated into it. So for me, it's like every time I turn my head, there's a new app that I wasn't sure would even apply to AI is popping AI into it. And you're going, wow, something I didn't think of, you know, something I just wasn't planning for. And now I can avoid Chat GPT, just go into my course study app and build anything I want all day long and not move from that app. That I think is the key to some of these integrations that they're doing now. And we see that going across the board.
You know, one thing that kind of a little bit bothers me, maybe it's just my personal situation. A lot of these apps are using ChatGPT as an API, which is perfectly fine. It's great. They've integrated. But for me, the problem is I already have ChatGPT. I'm already paying for it, and I'm already paying for an API. I want to be, what I'm saying is, why don't they allow me to use my own API I'm already paying for and put that key into their application and reduce the cost? So why would they? Basically, I feel like I'm paying for ChatGPT twice.
Some do that, some don't. I know in our systems, the systems that Ross, I, and Chris have developed and put together for AI production, do both sometimes. It depends on which way you go. You can charge for the credits or pay a monthly fee for that stuff. It's really how you come across with your need. I think some don't need a lot of credits. So you could literally just give them the GPT access through the API inside the account and not worry about it. And it might cost you 50 cents a month to provide them with access. But somebody who's out there generating AI content daily for hours at a time, they're going to eat up thousands of dollars worth of AI credits. And that has to be a cap. You've got to give a cap to that, or at least give them the provision to add their own AI key and be billed themselves from OpenAI. Not have to.
Yeah, that's a great point, because as we were talking before, the issue earlier before the show was that I was complaining about ChatGPT's interface. And so if it's a little bit awkward. So if you have an application that's got their own interface, it may be the way to go. And you don't even need to apply or become a ChatGPT user.
The other piece of that too is the framework that's built on the back end. A lot of these programs and softwares out there, they're building their own basically trained API for ChatGPT. So if they were to give you your API access to that, then it's gonna kind of have to retrain on your API, making it less effective.
Good point. Didn't think about it. That's a really good point, Russ.
Yeah. And I see that across the board. Some like I have several chatbot builders, and some of them come with millions of credits. Some of them come with no credits at all, and you have to provide as you use it. Or others even, they don't charge you at all until they've established how many credits you've used for that period of the month. And that's BotPress is one example of that, where you can go in and use that all day for free and build whatever you want with it. And then once it goes live on anybody's website and starts taking back and forth API calls, then they're going to charge you for how much access is taken across the token level. So that's about it. But it works pretty well. One other I did want to mention was one that I dropped in our group chat today, and that was Elon's LLM that not a lot of people have talked about lately at all. And he's called that one Grok. It's going to be a lot cheaper, and I'll let Chris talk about the negatives, but it's going to be basically, we all know Elon's shooting for an all-in-one platform on X. He wants everything. He wants a pay gate like PayPal. He wants AI. He wants it all inclusive, just like Facebook has siloed their platform. And I think he's doing pretty well by only charging $8 for what you're getting now. Is not only the authentication for your account, but now you get the AI built in with that fee. So you're not paying the extra $20 for an LLM chat. What do you think?
It's a pretty huge model as well.
Yeah. And Chris, give us a couple of the negatives that you caught right away on that with regards to the cost.
Sure. It's not usually my style to be this negative Nancy, taking the flip side, but the article that was shared was so just really in love with Elon Musk and his new model that I didn't feel like it provided an objective comparison to what's included or what the capabilities were. It seems cool because there is a regular mode and a fun mode. Apparently the fun mode is kind of like this edgy punk rock rebellious sort of, LLM, where the regular model is more factual and is going to be like your typical ChatGPT. The big difference is that Elon wanted to make his not prevent the user from discussing anything about sex, religion, or any sort of taboo topics that seem to be presented with other LLM models. I think overall, it could be another tool. I love competition within any technology. I think it just helps improve and make things better. But it'll be interesting to see how users respond to this. It seems like there's a free option with ChatGPT where you can just kind of get started. And then the paid model goes up to 20. It starts at 20, but the X version is starting at $8. One big difference is there's no REST API with Grok. So if you really, those who really use LLMs and ChatGPT, they need API access in order to really benefit from it. So that'll be a big difference. We'll see how the market responds to this new LLM and what changes are going to be made with the new competition.
Now, Chris, you're talking about 1.5 right now, because 1.0 was made public, right, as a public domain model. Is that correct?
From my understanding, yes.
Yeah, and okay, so this is the 1.5, the one I think they're charging for. Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice.
And along those same lines, ChatGPT over at OpenAI just opened up their interface to not require a login in order to use the ChatGPT.
Kind of freaked me out a little bit when
I
I'd go
know.
to it. I was like, wait, what's going on in my system? And it just pops right, takes you right into 3.5. And I was like, what's going on here?
So it's not a bad thing for the general public to be able to
No.
just access it on the fly without having to deal with any kind of login. You could be anywhere basically and just go start using it. So
I guess like
no
Microsoft,
excuses.
that's why Microsoft Bing has got it set up as well. Same kind of deal.
Yeah. Now, do you guys utilize any of these AI components when it comes to letting it read your email or summarize any of your content within the browser or anything
I
like
would
that?
love that if it could. I haven't gotten
It
that
can.
far yet.
Oh, it can. Gmail already can. It can summarize your emails for you. So
Yeah.
I'm a little reluctant myself to
Yeah.
have an AI from a third party reading my email. I don't think it's really appropriate in the first place that they're given access. Not that Google hasn't been reading our email since it probably
Right.
came out, but it's just one of those things I think I get a little touchy about is my personal email or my business email that someone else is going through. And it's like when I open my email in the first place and I see, hey, your consumer's energy bill of $300 or whatever dollars is due next week. I'm like, wait a minute, how do you know how much my consumer's energy bill is? You're obviously reading my email. So it kind of gets a little iffy for me there. Maybe I'm not quite ready to release that much, relinquish, I should say, that much authority over my Gmail account.
Well, and that's the great thing. You should have the ability to choose what you want to release. That's my concern.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
I have had a chance to use it. I don't think I was a willing participant. I think they updated their terms and conditions and suddenly it was there. But what it is doing is it's auto-completing sentences that I use all the time. So please let me, and then it'll fill in, know if you have any questions, or thank you for your email today, or thank you for your question. So it is pre-filling the email. I also have concerns about what information that they're compiling together based on my emails, and that's a worry. And that was a big concern with any AI being injected into any sort of tool that we're using. For example, Canva. Canva has some great AI tools that are built in, but then that opens us to now our information is being fed into a larger model. There's no privacy, safeguards in place. I don't think so. They've been selling our data for, the past 2 decades. This is a part of just making more money, increasing competition, and I don't think us as the end user have a lot to say about it. But I am hopeful about the tools and how we utilize them. We just have to make sure that there's some privacy regulations and safeguards in place.
And
well, it used to be anything was free. You realize you were the product, but now they're charging you, and they're still doing it.
Remember when cable came out and they said that you would pay for cable so that you wouldn't have any commercials?
Yeah. Now Netflix has commercials.
Not only that, but they keep raising the price, and now they're even going to put the commercials back. Yeah, that's the truth of it. So we got bamboozled there. I guess for me, Chris had a good point. It's obvious that they've been reading our emails. Google just went to court and got fined all kinds of money hand over fist for all the information they were pulling without proper, permissions from their users. So in that regard, I don't trust Google going forward. I just don't. I don't know why, but that's just a feeling I have. So I'm kind of, Google, just you stand over there and do your LLM and we'll watch all this other stuff. That's my stance right now. And I think because they screwed up so bad these last few weeks, it's only ingrained in me that I shouldn't trust them. You know what I mean? So Ross, what else you got right now? Anything important?
I did send you the video of editing the image. I just took a picture of the seltzer water I'm drinking right now and moved it on my desk. I did have to erase it. You'll see that in the video. I had to erase the original image because it didn't remove it. But if you want to share that, that can show what's going on with Samsung and how it's moving the image. It worked out pretty decently once I removed the image.
Now, can you still drink the drink once you've removed it?
I don't know. Let's try it.
All right, let me see if I can.
It does still work. AI is amazing.
Okay, I'm gonna just share this.
I guess that's the virtual part they're talking about.
I'm gonna leave the audio off. I don't need any audio on this, right, Russ?
No,
You want to walk us through this?
Yes. All right. So right here, I took a picture of my seltzer water that I was drinking. You have to click on this little generate button here, circle the image that you want to move, and then you can drag it. You can see here I actually had some problems dragging it, but once I finally got it, I was able to move it on my desk over to the corner, and then it does its thing. It sits here and generates. So as it sits here and generates, it takes a few seconds, and boom, there you have it. It moved it, but it did leave the old can there. So I had to do a little bit more editing on it. So what I did here is I went through and tried to find the button. I was lost for a little bit there, but as we go, you can see, I finally found it here. And then you have to circle the item again to erase it. And voila, it's gone. It erased it. So now you have a little smudge in there, but imagine doing this 6 months ago, you wouldn't have been able to do any of this at all. So where AI has come to is so amazing.
I want to know how it rotated the can, because the label's not the same. It rotated. Yeah. Now I've seen other similar, not really AI generators similar to this, which allow you to. And a guy made this on a really cool method. He takes an iPad and he sells you an iPad. Well, not the iPad. He sells you the app with a green screen box. Okay. You take the iPad and you set it on in front of the green screen box and you put your product into the box. And then you start the iPad and you have all these video backdrops that you can pull in behind it in real time while you move the object however you want. You can have a green glove on and actually like move the object around and film all this stuff. I'll find some links to that one day so that you guys can see it. But yeah, back to that can. Here's that can. It's turned. And I was like, how in the world was the AI able to determine what was on the front of that can when it didn't even see the front of the can? So it had to go back and work in its own little magic. Hey, that's a spritzy can or whatever they call that, and put a label on it. I was like, oh my God, it figured that out. Yeah, it says seltzer, doesn't it? Yeah, it says
Yeah,
seltzer.
it said seltzer before. I took a picture that way. So it was that way, but I do think it rotated it slightly.
Once it's moved, it rotates. Like what?
Yeah,
once it regenerated the image for you, the seltzer word on the front of the can that you moved is perfectly legible. But when you see the can that it regenerated, it's turned 90 degrees. Look at it. It's literally not the same view of the can. It just caught my eye, so I had to say something about that.
Very
but
cool.
that was in real time, and the fact that I can do something like that in a minute is crazy. Took the picture, did all of it right then. It's nuts what it's doing.
So what other things do we have? I know I had another one pop up. I'm going to head back to the Best AI podcast site real quick because
well, one of the things I've been playing with, I'll tell you about, is something called, let's see, I've got it here in the window. It's called Comic AI, Comic Generator AI. Yeah,
nice.
Create Comics AI. Oh, comicsmaker.ai. And what that is it allows you to create comic books. And so you can put your own characters in there or say, hey, generate me a character that looks like this. And it creates the layout. That's a cool. So I've been kind of experimenting with how that works as well.
Yeah, and I do want to touch, I know Sunday mentioned she liked the image that I put up for our Easter notification that nobody was going to be here that week. That was a very simple prompt. That was, give me a picture of an Easter bunny to notify everyone we weren't going to be on stage that day. That was all I typed. This is what it gave me, basically. So you don't have to think much when it comes to these quick images. The other one I wanted to mention was they do have AI voice changers now, which is something we have not looked into. I really want to play with some of those for the fact that I'm a game streamer. So for me to have some really cool voice effects would be kind of interesting to be out there doing my thing. And the other that I wanted to follow up on from last time we were with you guys is the price of the 4060s through 4090s, and especially the 4060 have come down tremendously, though the 4090 Ti is still around $1,500. You can now pick up a 4060 class RTX for under $300. So $269 is the rock bottom price right now for an RTX 4060, which is very similar to what I'm using over here on my machine, which is a 2060. So it's 2 generations newer, not a super or a Ti model. So you will get the base model there, but well worth just having a station over to do graphics and generate AI images and stuff.
Ti model on Amazon is only $450 right now.
Oh, is it? The Ti 2060 might be, yeah. That would be about
I
right.
know the 4060 Ti
Or
is
the 60. I meant to say 60 series. Yes.
Yeah,
That makes sense. That'd be about right. Yeah, the 60s, 3 under the largest, fastest model. So always keep that in mind. 60 is about the base model nowadays. They don't make a 50 model anymore. They did make a 1050, but they don't make a 2050, 3050, or 4050. Okay. I think that's all I've got tonight, guys. Honestly, I love the competition. I did see some word, and you may want to read this article about the GPT persuasion manipulation article there about GPT-4.
What's the basis of it?
It's saying that it is now 82% more persuasive than a human. So we have AI built into a sales bot. All three of us over here do. We sell them on a regular basis as a component to businesses to allow their existing lead base to speak and be nurtured and generate basically interest in a product or service through an AI that is persuasive and manipulates, in a sense, the conversation by constantly redirecting and rerouting instead of letting the person get off topic and start asking for recipes or where their next trip is going to go. They actually have the bot leading them in the direction it wants them to go based on its conversational goal that it's been trained for. So if you really want to check out those kinds of things, ask either one of us here. Ross, myself, or Chris are all very well in tuned. I basically focus mine toward AV. Ross is really focused in the insurance industry and other services. And Chris down there, you're doing stuff kind of all across the board with doctors, dentists, some of the higher ticket items. So those are the areas you'd want to discuss this with. All right.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
Some
go ahead, Chris.
Quick updates.
Yep.
Some new legislation passed from the FTC that could affect some of the services that we provide, or at least something to be mindful of. The FTC just proposed a ruling that passed that now bans the use of AI when impersonating a government agency or a business or a person, like an individual. So I did reach out to their press team to ask for some clarification, because with any legislation or law that is passed, it can be interpreted in many different ways. So I wanted to make sure that the way that we're using our services and many other businesses are using similar. I want to make sure that we're within the guidelines of the law and making sure that the impersonation that they're speaking of is not what we're using it for. So this is, been a common practice for many years, where there's scam artists who are impersonating government agencies. They impersonate Facebook. They impersonate actual people. They're obviously not the person, but I feel like it's a much different position where we are the actual business. We are the actual owner, the person who are represented by AI. But we want to make sure that we're well within the law and the guidelines to make sure that we're not doing anything illegal here.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I was listening to a podcast by Mark Andreessen, and he made a comment that I've said for years, and that is he didn't think there's any law. There's not a law already created that would prevent this. In other words, my point is, every law you can think of that is related to AI is already in place, right? You can't defraud somebody. You can't impersonate. I'll bet you everything they're talking about is already on the books. All they've added is the thing AI, which doesn't make sense, because that's just a technology.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense. Ross, what do you got? Anything to close with?
Along with that, I would just say, if you're using the technology and you're worried about that, one way that we're getting past that, even if they were to come down and say you can't pretend to be a human or you can't let AI impersonate you, is just to say this is an assistant and I work for this company. And that's one way we get around it. And then you can even go one step further and put in a disclaimer: hey, you're talking to an AI assistant. Are you okay with continuing this conversation? If you are, let's move forward. If not, in the conversation.
Well, I mean, you talk to your bank, you're talking to an IVR system, right? It's been going on for decades. What's the difference?
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah, I don't see any
That's exactly right.
And even those are just mechanical recordings a lot of times.
Yeah.
They're not even AI. They're just generated on a flow chart, a lot like we used to make chatbots.
Yeah.
And that's some of the stuff I'd like to show as we move ahead. Next week, I think it'll be a good time for this. I wanted to use a little bit of this time to talk about chatbots. And I do want to give one quick example before we go, but it's not anything that we're currently selling. I have put them on a couple of sites before, but I want people to kind of get a feel for the way we incorporate AI into some of these systems. And the way
Yeah,
I'm
they
gonna
may
do
not be
this-
aware of what you mean when you say chatbot.
Yeah, I want to kind of give a rundown of one. Whoops, hold on one second.
And Leland, I can put
Yeah.
together a demo version of what you, me, and Chris do
Yeah.
on a Facebook page, and we can share that in the open group as well.
Yeah, that'd be one thing too, because we've incorporated these bots into Facebook pages so that we've actually given a persona to the individual bots, given them names and imagery so that they look like a Ava, is what Ross is labeling as his. We named our bot over on Best AI Podcast Ava, just for the fact that he's using that as context as an AI virtual assistant. So that's just the acronym that he's using. So I'm going to just show this real quick. I'm going to log into a system that I operate. This has nothing to do with a sales pitch or anything. I just want you guys to get a feel for the internal workings of a chatbot widget, let's say. And in this case, I'm just going to give you an example of one for Best Studios that I've developed. And this is a little different than your newer chatbots that are all conversational driven. This is some of the older processes that used to be done where we had click to call, click to text, a link to your Facebook page or your messenger for Telegram, or now we're able to integrate questioning through an integration through a live chat widget. This also includes chat widgeting through live interface with a real human. So we have a lot of different avenues to use these chat widgets other than just attaching it to ChatGPT. And when I say that here, I can sit here and actually have a conversation through a thread, just like I would on Facebook or anything else. But the beauty about the system where you're actually building bots and incorporating ChatGPT is now we get into conversational chat flows. And in this case, when it comes to Candid, my Best Live or Best Studios LLC bot, I had to program a little bit of the staging. And this is what we used to do all the time when it came to Manny chatbots and some other significant examples of that. You had to create the trigger so that the bot would be identified as, or the bot would know a human was going to talk to it. And then it would prompt a message like, hi there. When the window opened, you would see this little prompt show up with maybe a few examples of, well, do you want me to call you back? Do you want to talk to a live person? What services do you provide? Or can I ask a question? So in this case, we have little cards and routes that everything has to take, whether it's collecting information for a lead flow to get somebody into a CRM, or to get somebody to fill out a form for an appointment, or whatever that might be. Or maybe they just want to know more about your business or your brand, so they want to ask a question. Well, in this case, we have this little chat GPT integration connecting the API key, which is going to go away after this anyway. And then I gave the bot instructions on how it was going to answer any questions that came through the chatbot widget. So it's going through an API connection. It's connecting to OpenAI's chat interface to the bot. And it's given a prime directive, which is to go and kind of take whatever the person's asking for, shoot that over to ChatGPT and get an answer. If they ask about the studio or if they ask about hours or anything of that nature, it's all pre-programmed into that context. And then we can add functions to that or other options if we want it to take place. And what I mean by options are the temperature and frequency and presence penalties that take place when you're using ChatGPT. You can ask it to either completely follow your word of training to the T. You can have it somewhat elaborate and improvise a little bit, or you can let it go all on free reign and do whatever it wants by changing these penalty frequencies and temperatures. So the temperature, the lower you go, basically means it's going to control less random completions, and it's going to, if you head up towards zero, it's literally going to become deterministic and repetitive because it's not going to consider options in its answer. So that's really all there is to it. From there, you take a small bit of widget code that you place in the header of your website, and it renders that little box that shows up in the corner of your website. That is simply an API connection to a backend interface. You type something, it reads it, it shoots it off to ChatGPT's open API. It shoots it back with an answer, and that's it. Now, sales bots are much more
Leland, I was
elaborate.
going to say that chart reminded me. That's probably what they would hand a salesperson or a support person, a new support person that was going to work for a company, right? And they ask a question, they're gonna look up what the answer is, right? They're gonna go here. Oh, you want to know that? You got to go here. So it makes perfect sense that that's the way it used to work. Now my question is, how can you use those answers in your information to train the bot?
In some cases, we have bots that are capable of constructing other bots. Now, that's some really uncharted territory that we're just now starting to play with. So, along with the conversational bots that actually talk back to you as you speak to them. So, these are areas that are still gray for us because we're still learning it, and we will definitely be bringing all that information to the table as we proceed. Ross is definitely playing in that area. Chris is playing in that area with audio, and we're all playing in that area when it comes to automations. So
Cool.
a lot of new stuff coming into the flow diagram principle of starting somewhere at one point and working your way through a diagram of processes to get to the end result. And that's where AI shines brilliantly. So.
I do have to say it's becoming more sophisticated than that now, Lee. As it goes, it's no longer the flow. It's no longer the automation. You're creating almost a brain, a cortex, a way of thinking that maps out, and it can go from place to place and have conversations.
Makes sense.
It just bounces back and forth like a human would.
Yeah. Wow,
Crazy
that's so
stuff,
cool.
guys. All right. Well, we've only got 10 minutes to the hour, so I think we're going to wrap it up there. If anybody else has any word they'd like to add from outside out there on Facebook or YouTube, throw it out here now so I can see if you're out there. But I do have a few. We've got Cat Gizmo said hi, it looks like somehow. But our good friend out there is sending us all kinds of cues. She obviously had a good point about the laws against impersonating someone already is illegal. We know that for sure. And when it comes to comics, I want to check that out too, Lee. That's something for me that I've always wanted to do comics my whole life. As a kid who got paid to draw, I told myself I was going to do that as a child. I did that, but I never got into cartooning like I wanted to. And now I think I can. I think I can actually go and play in cartooning and have a ball with it.
Well, it's the same thing for me. And, I was never really that great at drawing, but I always wanted to tell stories. And I think that's the issue. For me, it's all about storytelling. Photography is all about storytelling. All this stuff is. And so if I can take the same concept, number one, you could use it as an educational tool, or you could use it as just entertainment and getting information about health or whatever across to somebody, or AI for that matter. So to me, I think it's a great way, a great tool that could be used to communicate your message to someone that might be interested.
Totally agree. Well, thank you to everyone out there who came by to watch Best AI Podcast this evening, including the one that we got to comment for us tonight. And as long as we continue to provide information, we hope you gain from it. And if there is anything you'd like us to add to the show, any guests you'd like us to bring, which are going to start happening here very shortly, and workshops, if we really want to make this beneficial for everybody, we're going to start doing the workshops once a week is the plan so far that I am intending to do. We're going to be doing that either in Zoom or my AIO Sessions account, which allows us to incorporate some AI into that whole workshop process. And that'll be starting next week. So look for that post. I'm going to be probably looking toward a Wednesday day or evening to do that. So give me some recommendations. Tell me what days work best for you for a workshop. And we'll sit down. Again, we're just putting the post out. I'm not going to be having the workshop next week, but that post will go out for people to set up what they think would be a good time, what they want to see in a workshop, and then we'll build it around that. So anything, last remarks, anybody, before we call it a night?
No, thanks. Enjoyed it.
All right, cool. Guys, you have a great rest of your weekend. I appreciate you guys being here as always, and we'll see you in the next broadcast. Take care.
We're breaking the mold. With AI fusion, let the story unfold. From life to business, the future is here. Unlock the potential, make it crystal clear. It's time to fuse, let the sparks ignite. AI in action, reaching you.